You're listening to a special AI-powered training session generated based on my original research and training documents. While the voices you are about to hear are AI-generated, the insights come directly from my verified material.
Welcome to the Epoch Zero Show. Today we are unpacking Module 1.3.1, Statistical ML and Quiet Progress, 1990s to 2010s.
We're going to deconstruct this critical period across 5 pillars. First, the new paradigm, data. Second, the statistical toolset that defined the era. Third, the quiet commercial victories that proved real-world value. Fourth, the ImageNet catalyst, the moment that changed everything. And finally, the essential lesson this history holds for leaders today.
So let's get right to it. This entire period, it was defined by a fundamental shift, a move away from the purely philosophical and toward a world grounded in hard, empirical reality. You see, the core idea was simple, but it was profound. We stopped trying to hand code the rules of the world into a machine. Instead, we gave the machine the world's data and let it figure out the rules for itself. This shift from symbolic AI to statistical machine learning is the single most important concept to grasp from this time. And what powered this shift? A new, almost inexhaustible resource, data. The internet, especially with the rise of Web 2.0 platforms like Facebook and YouTube, created this tsunami of user-generated content. Then you had visionary projects like ImageNet in 2009. They didn't just collect data, they meticulously curated it. They created the high-octane fuel these new learning algorithms desperately need. Of course, data was only half the story. The other engine was compute. Moore's law just kept marching on relentlessly. Suddenly, algorithms that had been sitting on a shelf for decades were actually practical. With a 1,000-fold increase in CPU speed and RAM, we could finally run these statistical models. Data and compute, those were the twin engines of progress. So, with all this data and compute, what tools do we actually build? Let's talk about the workhorses of this pre-deep learning era, many of which, by the way, are still incredibly relevant. 2 models really dominated the field of classification: support vector machines and random forests. And they represent 2 completely different ways of thinking. SVMs are all about mathematical elegance, finding that one single perfect solution. Random forests? They're more about the wisdom of the crowd, a kind of brute force consensus. This tension between elegance and brute force, it's a theme you'll see again and again in AI. Let's start with support vector machines, developed back in '95 by Vapnik and Cortez, and they're built on just beautiful math. The goal is to find the single best line or hyperplane to separate your data, by making the gap, the margin between the classes, as wide as possible. But the real magic was something called the kernel trick. It's a clever bit of math that let them handle complex, nonlinear problems. The whole thing was backed by rigorous theory, like VC dimension. Their strength was theoretical integrity. Now, contrast that with Leo Brayman's random forests from 2001. These things are a masterclass in pure pragmatism. The idea is simple. You build hundreds, even thousands of simple decision trees, and then you just let them vote. This ensemble approach is incredibly robust. It just works, right out of the box with very little tuning. Honestly, even today, it's still the go-to baseline for almost any new tabular data problem. And it wasn't just about those 2. There were other, quieter successes that were absolutely critical. Hidden Markov models, they're what finally made speech recognition practical. Then you had Bayesian methods. Everything from simple spam classifiers to Judea Pearl's incredibly deep work on causal networks, they gave us a real framework for dealing with uncertainty. These were the models that delivered value without hype. And all of this leads to what is maybe the most important outcome of the entire era. For the very first time, machine learning wasn't just a research topic anymore. It was a profit center. Just think about spam filtering. Seriously, by the late 90s, email was becoming almost unusable. And what fixed it? Simple Bayesian classifiers. They learned what spam looked like from all of us clicking that button. This wasn't some lab experiment. This was a tangible solution to a problem everyone had. It was probably the first time millions of people were interacting with a real ML system every single day. The financial case? It became even clearer when you look at recommender systems. Take Amazon. Their collaborative filtering algorithm, the thing that powers customers who bought this also bought, that was directly responsible for a staggering 35% of their sales. That's not some abstract KPI. That's billions of dollars of real revenue, driven by an algorithm. So why did this era succeed? Why didn't it lead to another AI winter like the ones before it? The answer is focus. They stopped making these grandiose promises about building a general thinking machine. Instead, they promised something much more concrete. We will classify spam with 99% accuracy. They delivered clear, measurable value on narrow, well-defined business problems. That was the key. So by about 2010, statistical ML had really proven its worth. It was delivering value. But there was one grand challenge left on the table, a problem that these powerful methods just couldn't crack. And the solution to that problem, well, it would end this era and kick off the next one. And that grand challenge was general visual recognition. I mean, really being able to identify thousands of different objects in any random image. For decades, the best systems were built by hand, with experts carefully designing features to look for edges and textures and shapes. And by 2010, progress had completely stalled. We had hit a wall. And then came 2012, the ImageNet competition. A team with Krzyzewski, Sutskever, and Jeff Hinton showed up with something different, a deep convolutional neural network they called AlexNet. The result? They achieved 85% accuracy. The previous best was around 75, a 10-point leap in 1 year. This was not an incremental improvement. It was a demolition. What that result did was establish a new law for the entire field. And the law is this: scale beats hand-engineered features. Give a neural network enough data and enough compute, and it will learn features far better than any team of human experts ever could. Just like that, the era of painstaking feature engineering was over, and the era of deep learning had officially begun. All right, so what's the lesson here? For leaders operating today in a world that is just drowning in hype, what can we learn from this quiet, productive era? The success of that time really stood on 5 pillars. First, they made modest claims, focusing on narrow, achievable goals. Second, they were relentless about measurable value and clear ROI. Third, they knew how to leverage the new explosion of data from the internet. Fourth, they rode the wave of Moore's law. And finally, and this is important, they built on a solid foundation of understandable statistical theory. These aren't just historical footnotes. They are the timeless principles for making real progress in AI. You have to understand, the deep learning revolution that came next, it wasn't born from some new theoretical breakthrough. It wasn't a new equation on a whiteboard. It was an empirical discovery. It was a powerful, undeniable demonstration that a different kind of architecture, when you gave it massive scale, could solve problems that had stumped researchers for decades. So I'll leave you with this question. As you build your own AI initiatives today, are you building on those same solid foundations? Are you focused on measurable value, or are you just chasing the latest hype cycle? The answer to that will determine if you build lasting success or just contribute to the next AI winter.